Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to be looking at remedies in judicial review. Today we're going to be looking at remedies in judicial review. So, first of all, we're going to look at the first remedy, that is certiorari. We're going to look at certiorari. So, what is certiorari? It's a judicial review remedy that occurs when a decision has already been made by a public authority. So that's what certiorari does. So it occurs to quash the decision of a public authority. So we'll look at the case of Nyampala Safaris and others versus Zambian Wildlife Authority and others. So it was stated in the case that the decision of a public authority may be quashed where it is found that the authority acted without legal authority or failed to comply with the rules applicable, or the decision was unreasonable in the Webster's sense. So let us look at a case illustration on the remedy of certiorari. We'll look at the case of the People versus Minister of Information and Broadcasting Services ex parte Francis Kasomo. We'll look at the case of the People versus Minister of Information and Broadcasting Services ex parte Francis Kasoma. So, first, what happened was that an order of certiorari was issued by the High Court to quash the decision of the minister to create a statutory body known as Media Council of Zambia. So the quashing of the decision was on the premise that it was made in bad faith and that the rules of natural justice were never observed, in that the people were to be affected by the decision were never heard before the decision was made. A court that quashes a decision has power to remit the decision to the decision maker so that a decision can be made in accordance with the judgment passed by the court. The court can also order a stay of proceeding after granting leave where the applicant is seeking an order of certiorari. So we can see in the case that the affected parties issued an order of certiorari to the Minister of Information and Broadcasting Services because the statutory body was made in bad faith, according to that was the argument that was made by the people who are affected in the matter. So before we can even move forward, first of all we need to let me just give a brief explanation on the procedure of initiating a judicial review proceeding. So the first thing that has to be established when you are issuing a judicial review proceeding is that a person has to have standing or habeas corpus. They must have sufficient interest in the matter. That's the first one. That's in accordance with Rule 3 of Order 53 of the Rules of England. So a person has to have sufficient interest in the matter. That's the first procedure. Then the next one is that they must apply for leave from the court. They must apply for leave for the court. So first of all, they must have sufficient interest. Secondly, they must have an arguable case in order for them to go to the leave stage. So once it is established, so in this matter, the People versus Ministry of Information and Broadcasting Services, the applicant had sufficient interest because they were going to be affected by the minister's decision. So once you have established that they have sufficient interest, then the next step you have to establish is that they must have an arguable case. They have grounds that can be used against the public authority. So those are the first two procedures. First of all, sufficient interest. Secondly, an arguable case. Then thirdly, they must be granted leave by the courts. So the court has to examine the matter, then grant leave. So before we do that, the court has to examine. So before even the person has to bring the matter to court, they must have sufficient interest, and as well as they must have they must be bringing this judicial review proceeding to a public body, not a private body. We can establish this in the case of Sondashi versus Mianda, where the applicant brought a judicial review proceeding against a private body, that was a political party. So the court ruled that a political party is a private body and it is not subject to judicial review. So that's just a brief explanation of how to initialize or bring a judicial review proceeding in Zambia. So let's go to the next. Let's go to the next slide. I think I've explained everything. Let's go to the next slide. So the next slide is simply the remedy of prohibition. So this is simply prohibiting a public body from continuing to do something that is contrary to the law. You're just prohibiting the public body from doing something or from making that decision. That is prohibition. So oftenly certiorari and prohibition are applied. Firstly, certiorari quashes, then prohibition prohibits a public body from continuing making those decisions. So you quash and stop them from making such decisions. So you quash the decision of public authorities and you make them stop making those decisions. So we go to the next one, that is mandamus, the remedy of mandamus. So the remedy of mandamus oftenly as well is issued together with certiorari. So what happens? Certiorari, as I explained earlier, quashes the decision of a public body, while mandamus compels the public body to retake the decision in line with the law. So simply what happens here is that the public body is compelled to do what the law states, or what requires that public body to do. So the public body is supposed to perform its duties within the confines of the law. So that's what mandamus simply does, the remedy of mandamus. So yeah, let's go to the next slide. So we can see a good case illustration on how mandamus and certiorari can be put in a matter. The case of the people versus Derek Chitala. No, the people versus Attorney General ex parte Derek Chitala. We can see that a good demonstration was made where the applicant applied for certiorari to quash the decision by government to have the constitution enacted by parliament, and mandamus to compel the government to have constitution brought into effect by way of constituent assembly and referendum as recommended by Constitutional Review Commission. So we can see how it was demonstrated in the case of Chitala, the people versus Attorney General and expert Derek Chitala. So yeah, let's go to the next one. Oh wow, we're done. we're done. But there are a number of remedies that should be taken, should be noted. So there is injunction and damages. I think these you have to read them in your own time. You can read all those cases in your own time. Then yeah, thank you so very much for listening to this segment. I hope you subscribe and you follow the website. Thank you so much. Take care.